Ready?
Good evening, sir. This is Aparna.
Good morning, ma'am.
I'm ready whenever you are. Probably another 5 minutes.
Ma'am, sorry, a little bit late.
No problem. Good evening. How are you?
Fine, thank you, ma'am. Had your breakfast, ma'am?
Having my coffee right now.
Okay. Thanks a lot for even postponing your breakfast for us.
No problem. Yeah.
Right.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, we will be starting another 5 minutes, ma'am.
Okay, I will be on mute. Whenever you start, I'll get off mute. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Abhisha, shall we start? Abhisha, madam.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, shall we start? Abhisha, madam.
Can you hear me? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, in correct the voice.
Hello. Okay, sir. Dear participants, please don't share your screen. Good evening. Thank you for being here with us, Department of Management Studies, DMI College of Engineering. We are thankful to our chairman, Reverend Father Dr. J. Arul Raj, whose gracious words and benevolent thoughts encourage us to have this event. We are grateful to our administrator, Reverend Sister B. Hamlet, and Principal, Dr. N. Alagesan, for their valuable guidance. Prayer offered to God Almighty is the start that ensures good finish. Let us all spare a moment for Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. In this era of globalization, supply chain management is upgraded in order to describe both changes within supply chain themselves, as well as the evolution of process, methods, and tools to manage them in this new era. We are privileged to hear more of these recent trends in supply chain management from our beloved speaker. May I kindly request Dr. M. L. Jnanadasan, HOD, Department of Management Studies, to introduce our chief guest, Ms. Aparna. Over to Dr. M. L. Jnanadasan.
Good evening, one and all, and good morning to Ma'am Aparna. It's my proud privilege to introduce the guest speaker of the day, Miss Aparna Velnati, BE Electrical and Electronics Engineering from the prestigious JNTU, Master of Science Electrical Engineering from the University of Oklahoma, USA, a certified project management professional from the Project Management Institute of USA. Ma'am is currently the Director of America's Pricing Sales Operations in Texas Instrumentation Incorporated, Dallas, Texas, US. Some of her previous experiences are Senior Manager, Pricing and Strategy, Execution, Handling Contract Manufacturers, Engineering Project Manager, Sustaining Manager, a Project Management Officer, and was also a Lead Systems Design Engineer in Texas Instrumentation, where she worked for more than 19 years, spearheading the entire US sales operations. Her professional qualities are a highly driven and passionate execution leader, a leader by herself who has hands-on experience in building highly energized and customer-focused teams. Ma'am's domain area include pricing strategy, global operations, engineering and product management. She also has proven track record in the following areas, namely supply chain and sourcing, strategic global sales operations leadership, pricing strategy and analytics, customer pricing and negotiation, employee engagement, diversity and inclusion, recruitment, retention, and talent development. Turnkey vendor management, end-to-end operations of new product introduction, emerging market product launches, and business analytics. Madam is also actively involved in many social development activities as a part of Texas Instrumentation's CSR initiative. She heads the High Tech High Heads Event Committee, HTMM, where she works for a social cause. One of the main vision of this program is to close the gender gap in STEM professionals in USA. The main mission is to increase the number of girls graduating from high schools in USA and seeing that they enroll in college level programs in the STEM division. Ma'am also heads the business unit chair in TI, where she plays a predominant role in United Way grants panel, where she is responsible for receiving grants applications and identify the programs that tackle complex social problems. The program key areas include education, income, and health. She is also involved in training, receiving, and applications and making site visit to see proper distribution and utilization of funds. Such a busy personality in profession and social cause, accepting our invitation to deliver an expert talk is a dream come true for us. My heartfelt thanks to you, ma'am. My thanks are also due to my friend and ma'am's colleague, Mr. Thiru, who was instrumental in organizing this webinar. Ma'am, we are extremely happy to have you in our midst to deliver this webinar in recent trends in supply chain management. Welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Gnanadasan. Thank you for your kind introduction. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So Gnanadasan mentioned, right, I am like you guys, come from a small town in India 20 years ago, where my parents are from like a middle class family. My mom's a nurse and my dad's a ticket inspector in railways. So all of our three brothers, you know, they always wanted something more than what they had. So sent us to engineering schools and stuff like that, putting their life savings. And finally, you know, 20 years ago, I moved to the States, and Gnanadasan kind of gave me my background, right? So engineering background, I say business leader with an engineering heart. So I'm sure some of you folks who are in the management school are also. So I wanted to kind of take the opportunity. to kind of introduce my company a little bit, just so if any one of you are interested, right, that have an engineering heart or with a business background, please do check out TI, right? What we do essentially is we make semiconductor products like analog and embedded chips that are out there every day. You know, the cars that you drive in, the Bluetooth music you hear in Bluetooth, some of the diabetic machines that your parents may use, right? We are everywhere, from cars, connected classrooms, to automated factories. So we make every type of electronic system. So please do check out, right? We have about 30,000 employees in 30 different countries, where we are tirelessly striving every day to solve our customer problems. We have about 100,000 customers. So do check out ti.com. And if you are interested, we have a big R&D facility in Bangalore. So I just wanted to kind of give an introduction about my company as well. So I've been with this company about close to 10 years. Always had a great experience. So if you're looking for you know, a good company to start your career, I definitely would ask you to go check out the ti.com. Okay. So with that, let me start with the recent supply chain trends. When Thiru asked me, Dr. Gnanadasan's friend, right, one of my good friends, Thiru, I said, hey, do you want to give a talk on something business related to business school students? So I said, you know, something that is close to my heart, and especially with recent COVID-19, I hope everybody is staying safe in their houses and practicing, you know, social distancing and all the government mandated, you know, instructions. Supply chain is an interesting topic, right? And once we are out of this COVID, we see more emphasis to these supply chain trends. Okay. So again, I want to put a disclaimer in here. The views that I'm going to share here are more based on my experience only, and not my company's, right? So just want to make sure it's all public information that is out there. Okay. So let me start. I would like to kind of introduce what supply chain is, give you guys a little bit of background on how this has evolved over time. Go in detail about latest supply chain trends that we're seeing. And then why? Okay. All right. What is a supply chain, anyone? Okay. Distribution network. Okay. Anyone else? A network connecting customer and manufacturer. That's good. A network of suppliers. That's right. Anyone else? Flow of goods and services to transform a raw material involves all parties from suppliers and manufacturers, end-to-end process. Yeah. So good, right? So in a nutshell, if you look at it, right, this is right out of internet, and you probably find a million definitions of what it is, right? It's essentially a system of organizations or people, activities that are involved from a product to the end customer. Simply put, how I would say is, it's what is the best way to get a product from point A to point Z, point A being the manufacturer and point Z being the end consumer. And all the different steps involved. And some may be a straight line, right? A, B, C, through Z, or it can be a direct, like a B2C, where you're seeing, hey, people are going on to the Amazon.com or whatever and say, hey, I have a product available. And there are several other things. I'm not familiar with something local in India, but if you think about Etsy.com or whatever, where I have a skill and I want to do some embroidery or whatever that may be, and I can just put it on internet and people can buy it and I get the money, right? So it's simply put, getting something from a manufacturer to a consumer, and there are a lot of steps involved in it, right? So let's do a history lesson on how this came along. What is the evolution of supply chain? So in the 60s, right, this is kind of how it's defined. Again, this is out of internet. If you guys go look at evolution of it. So they had a lot of different siloed organization. How is demand doing? Demand forecasting. How is the sourcing happening? How is the planning engines, manufacturing, inventory, warehouse, material handlings. All of them are different silos. They're all working together to get something out, right? From a world where these many different organizations, and we, in the 60s, we didn't even have internet. We didn't even have, MRP systems, right? So how difficult it would have been. But it worked. For whatever reason, it worked in the 60s because that was a start, right? And we've had several products as we go along. And if you fast forward about 20 years into it, people started consolidating some like-minded things, right? And said, okay, we'll do something called, and then companies actually they were born in 2000s, so that you can help with all of this using information technology, right? So now if you think about it, fast forward 2020, what do we see, right? So we're kind of different things that you probably will see. Some of those terms, agile supply chain, people are going for ethical, sustainable supply chain, robotic processing, mobile IoT, right? Big data, analytics. These are all the buzzwords, and you probably find, several more terms like this, right? Omni supply chain, cloud computing, those kind of things. So let me kind of give you a brief introduction to some of these, right? I picked only few. There are many more trends, right? If you take a step back, all of these are more driven by advances in technology. Why I say that is, when I came to the US 20 years ago, I used to call my parents once in a month because I used to pay to the standard telephone company 1.15 so $1.15 per minute to call them, right? So if I'm making about $400 a month, that's a lot of money for me, right? So I would only talk to them once in a month to kind of, right, at least 10 minutes. That's $15. Fast forward now 20 years, you have WhatsApp, Skype, Facebook Messenger, a voice over IP technology that has driven where I don't pay anything, right? My internet just covers it, and I talk to them almost every day on my way to work or on my morning walk, right? So all these technological advances are there to better standard of living, right? Better how we do things. So similar thing here, right? You've seen the evolution of siloed, heavy manual involved organizations in the 60s to what we are going to see here in what the trends we're seeing in 2020. So if I take one by one, so mobile and IoT, right? How many of you, almost everybody has a mobile phone these days, right? My 9-year-old son is asking me, Mommy, I want a cell phone. I said, no, you need to turn 10 to get it. But I got my first cell phone when I was 22, when I started my job. So it's just interesting that technological advances have gotten, right? Costs are going down. Similarly here, as the infrastructure for mobile and IoT costs are going down, you're seeing a lot more increase in IoT device usage, which is Internet of Things, where you can have a real-time inventory monitoring, or shelves are auto restocked, or we're tracking deliveries, right? This morning I got a note from Amazon right on my phone saying, hey, your package is 10 stops away, track your driver, right? So we have these technological advances where you can do these tracking and all of those things on real-time basis, right? Then big data and analytics. This is another term or a trend that you will see, right? As with the supply chain is getting digitized and IoT usage has increased, what we're seeing is we have a lot of data available. If anything tracks you, you're leaving tracks behind, right? In the sense that you are leaving data behind. Data today is about $1 trillion industry, right? And you might have seen how data was used in US elections 4 years ago, or Brexit, where people started using customers' data, or Facebook and on all those other technologies to influence people on their behaviors, right? Similar to this, you see the data being used in supply chain where you generate business intelligence, right? How can you use passport? I'll also give an example. If you're browsing something in Amazon, right, a book or a product, inside on the side, you'll see, hey, we recommend you this, or people who have used this, you might also like this, something like that, right? So you're looking for something with $10 product, you end up spending $50 because you liked what the suggestions that were served. Is also one of the trends that we're seeing here. And then artificial intelligence and machine learning. So now again, everything is related, right? You have IoT where you now can collect data. You collect data, then you can use your analytics to predict, right? And then if you predict, then can you use these data simplify routine tasks, right? You're seeing where automated decisions are being made, simplified tasks like RPA and all of those things are being used, right? Robotic processing. So which again leads to the last one, which is robotic processing in autonomous vehicles, where right now we're looking into something where can a machine algorithm go through a sequence of steps and do order entry for us, for customers, right? So routine tasks, those kind of things, there are a lot of companies right now coming in with robotic processing that can hook you up to your ERP systems and help automate some of those. We're also seeing increase in autonomous vehicles. We have a talk where, especially days of social distancing and stuff, there are areas where the increase of autonomous vehicles have gone up, where deliveries are being done contactless, right? So again, this is not there yet, but picking up pretty soon. But in the warehouse facilities, we have seen autonomous vehicles. Amazon invested early on when they were growing, right, about 10 years or so ago, in something called Kiva Systems, which is a robotic company that helps them build these drones in the warehouses, where they pick and move things around automatically. So we're seeing a lot of those coming as well. And if I take it further, cloud computing, right? So, TI is not as advanced in this stage, where we are not using cloud as much, but we are, we have a lot of investments in ERP, but that is very expensive, right? And now every upgrade takes for a, almost 6 month cycle to get any new feature from, SAP or any other vendor. So what we are seeing is these legacy on-premise softwares that are, very expensive and takes a long time to upgrade. We're seeing people move from that to actually supply chain as a service, where you do get less infrastructure costs, right? And more importantly, you get features very quickly, right? So that you are not spending your money on getting expertise in these systems versus, just buying a service, right? So that's something that we are seeing in supply chain world as well. You'll also hear the term with global warming, right? Ethical and sustainable supply chains, right? People, think about switching from plastic to cardboard, right? Maybe using smaller packaging. Amazon, at least in the US, we have something called eco-friendly packing, where we don't have any big packaging, right? It just comes in a simple box with no manuals. You can go online and look at it. So zero carbon footprint, carbon neutral, those kind of words that you see, where organizations have to be conscious about these kind of things, not after the fact, but before the fact, right? So you'll also see something called circular supply chains, where we have recycling, refurbishing, right? You'll see products now refurbished. So a lot of it is driven by this ethical and sustainable supply chains, where consumer is actually demanding, right? Because this means a lot to the consumers, where they say, if the labor practices are not ethical, right, I might boycott that company and not buy products. So these are some of the things that the companies have to keep in mind as they look at the suppliers they pick, or facilities that they go about doing their business. The other thing that is coming on board is omni-channel supply chain. What I mean by that is shifting away from traditional single channel or multi-channel to omni-channel. Be it, people want the same experience, whether they want to buy it in an online store or a brick and mortar store, whatever that may be, they want a similar buying experience, right? Which again leads to putting, greater demand on the supply chain and logistics on that, where now they have to serve not only the individual, but also the retail, right? The example I'll give you is, right now in COVID-19, right, we're not going out for grocery stores. I'll give you an example, Walmart. The store is still open in the US, right? You can go wear a mask, wear a glove, and go and get what you want. But also, I have an app where I say, hey, I need bread, I need milk, etc. And I order online, and then I go drive through, and they put all my groceries in my car. So that's a contactless, right? Or I can sit in the middle of a night, and then say, hey, maybe I forgot something, I want to order online so that it comes over the weekend to my house delivered, right? So people want to see similar costs, right? And also from a logistics and supply chain perspective, inventory management is really, really critical, right? I will have a really bad experience if I order something and it's out of stock, right? At very initial, like couple of years ago when I started using the service, I was very frustrated that you show in stock, but when I order it, you say it's out of stock, right? When I go try to pick it up. So it's very important that our technology and supply chain is smart to cater not only the individuals but also retail replenishment, etc. Right? So agile supply chain. So what we are seeing is people are looking for supply chains to be flexible and agile, right? Which means you have to respond in a short notice for changes, right? This is kind of like a very radical departure from traditional supply chain, where we talk about reliability, consistency, low cost, right? Ship things to wherever is the cheapest, right? We've had our products done in like Thailand, Vietnam, China, Taiwan, right? Because the labor was very cheap. But now you're seeing things move from offshore to near shore, meaning shorter delivery times. We can't wait for something to ship on a boat, right? It needs to be right away. We're seeing things like third-party hubs that we are trying to utilize so that we can ship product closer to the customer, right? We also are seeing on-demand customers where, just an example, if a manufacturer of a phone, right, they want us to deliver parts for an evening shift if they place an order on the morning. So the delivery has to be within few hours away. So we have to rethink our supply chains, the location of our supply chains in a way that meets the consumer or the customer trends, right? So that's why your supply chains have to be agile. With the COVID-19 happening, a lot of companies, this is a test, right? How agile their supply chain is, how how they're utilizing latest technology. All of this is going to be a good test, and we'll see how as a society we come out of this, right? And then what are some of the lessons learned we do after that. So you might say, okay, all of this, how are people actually using it, right? Let's see all these trends where they are. This is 2020, and then obviously, this past decade, these trends have been trending. I picked up our latest survey. This is June 2020. It was published a few days ago by Ernst & Young. You'll see, right, deployed at scale across supply chain. At scale, some technological advances need to happen in these areas so that we can make it more affordable and also more accessible. Okay. So before I, case study is, why do we need to keep up with the latest supply chain trends? So let me pause there and see if you have any questions or that I might help answer. Okay, so maybe we'll keep the questions to the end. So case in point, right? So let's look at an industrial customer, right? I try to keep it very generic. Ours is an electronic supplier, right? You can categorize Texas Instruments as an electronic supplier. So I took a case study which is very, very similar to what we do, what we have seen it at TI. Okay, so in the electronic industry, part delays can be really critical. For example, even though a part electronic part costs, like, let's say 50 cents, right? But if it is very essential in your mobile phone and we're not able to supply to, for example, Samsung or LG, the entire production can stop, right? So that could be, even though you might say it's just 50 cents, but it's very important for the phone to be manufactured and in its completeness. So it's very critical for us. Lead times, order visibility, shipment, logistics, all of this becomes really, really, really important in industries like consumer electronics or our industry from a supplier perspective, electronic suppliers, right? So typically we say, okay, let's invest in our next big thing and an ERP software, right? And see if we can get benefits. That's how traditional electronic suppliers go off. We say, let's go invest in SAP or some analytics tool and see if we can solve these problems. But the problem with those is they're very highly customized, right? I mean, I live it day in, day out at my company where, if I want to make a small change to an ERP software, it's a 6-month deal, right? And we can't be agile, we can't move quickly. And this is very, very specialized to what we do at TI. And it takes a lot of effort, right? Which affects efficiency, which affects ultimately customer service. So oftentimes, right, our clients are frustrated saying, hey, you're not able to deliver it on time. You see these blame games happening where, you're lacking performance. But when you look at it, it's actually their forecasting, right? It's a very well-known fact that we don't have a crystal ball to exactly predict what our forecasts are going to be, right? That's how the nature of it is, right? So the technologies that I just talked about kind of help us get there versus a human saying, hey, I need a million units today, a million units next quarter, and then it goes to 10 million the following quarter, right? And instead of leaving it up to humans or outdated ERP systems, we have to look into ways of how can these latest supply chain trends can help us, right? So that's kind of a case study. So let me kind of walk you through just a context perspective, give a overview of TI. So the things that are important, right? We are about a $15 billion company, and we service in automotive and industrial markets with a lot of other markets like personal electronics, your phones, right? As I mentioned, communication equipment, we have enterprise systems, everything like that. We are also global. And the most important thing that I wanted to give you a perspective is we have about 80,000 products and 100,000 customers, right? So if I think about the entire spectrum of customers, from the biggest phone customers and communication equipment to mom and pop inventors where they're building some things in their garage, right? So we span a huge customer base. But our expertise, right, is we have cutting edge technology in semiconductor technology. We make great products, but supply chain is not something that we invest in, right? So, again, you'll see our fact sheet, right? We also talk about, hey, we are ethical, corporate citizenship, et cetera, et cetera. So, case in point being, we invest a lot of money in how we make great products, right? And we kind of leave it to, right? So our strategy is, hey, have a strong foundation on manufacturing, have differentiated technology, right? In terms of how best we can make our semiconductors, have a great broad portfolio, reach as many people as possible, right? We have a largest sales and application team, trending about how can we access the biggest customer base, right? And as I said, we have about 100,000 customers. So that's where we are. And if you go look at it, right, our distribution, right, our global footprint has been, it's in 14 different manufacturing sites, right, across 9 countries. And we make about, tens of billions of chips each year of movement, of material movement, right? With the broadest portfolio and 100,000 customers, supply chain is something that we traditionally have left into people who do the best, which is like distributors, right? So again, this is how we are even today, but we are making changes, right? So we have TI, you ship it to a distributor, right? Back to my evolution slide where in the 80s, we've started seeing distributors playing a bigger role in supply chain, right? And then those distributors either ship to the customer directly or they ship it to, you probably have heard Foxconn or Flextronics. I think Flextronics is in Chennai as well, which are contract manufacturers who build these electronic products, right? So this has been our typical supply chain even today, right? So you might say, what do distributors do, right? So again, suppliers like TI, we design and manufacture distributors. They are good in connecting the suppliers, right, with customers, and in most cost-effective way because they're good at it. They're experts, and then obviously we have a variety of customers who need all sorts of products. And then you might say, though, for example, for suppliers like us, we cannot physically have contact, right? So we can't have a credit established because we're not we are not good in kind of, et cetera, right? So distributors are, so we want to leave that to them. We also get sales support, right? Distributors give some sales support. They manage inventory, and they also do some value-added services like in electronics industry, some chips require programming, those kind of things, right? So in the past, this has worked for us for many years, I would say decades. And you might say, why would a customer use a distributor, right? Similar things where they have access to immediate if you are using a phone, I'm sure there are other things like a display, our competitor parts in there. So if I'm a phone company, I would rather go to some place where I get everything, right? If provided I get all the other benefits like inventory, credit, etc., etc. So because I'm in pricing, I want to introduce some models here, right? So typically, you supplier, you ship it to distributor, you get a net revenue, and then distributor ships to the customer and kind of reports resale, right? That's kind of a simple model. You might have heard pricing models. There are two kinds. One is cost plus, where we say, hey, Mr. Customer, this is your price irrespective of the channel, right? Again, cost plus plays a big role if you're going to omni-channel supply chain, where customer wants a similar experience, right? What we've used is SRP, or I think in India it's called MRP model, right? Which is essentially adjusted price. You might get $1 or you might get $1.10 depending on how much a distributor charges you as a margin, right? But between the supplier and distributor, you have about some agreement that says, hey, I'm going to ship you at this product, right? So these are two different models. Why this is important is, again, as you rethink supply chain, you would have to rethink your pricing models as well. More and more going towards a cost plus model in the recent world. So give you an example. This is our distributor network as of today. Okay. So we have, we operate in 4 different regions, Americas. You have Arrow, Avnet, DigiKey. Some of the electronic engineers might be familiar with these companies, right? In EMEA, we've tied up, the point here being, we tied up with local distributors that can serve the local customers, right? But as Japan, you have several different models, right? how we operate as well. Again, this is not an overnight thing that somebody at TI dreamed up. This has been built for about over 20 years. Our supply chain has been like this, right? So you might say, what's wrong with so many distributors, right? Just one of the example is, imagine, multiple distributors giving you multiple signals, right? A customer wants something and they're giving the signals to different contract manufacturers or distributors directly. And then these contract manufacturers are judging that demand and then sending it to these, distributors or TI. And then again, these distributors are judging the demand and sending it. By the time it comes from the actual customer to supplier, it's actually watered down, right? Why? I mean, you might say this problem has been there for a long time, right? Yes, definitely. But again, back to technological trends, what we are seeing is our customers want all of the things that I mentioned, right? Agile supply chain, things that are available. When the semiconductor market was really, really booming in 2017 and 2018, we've seen the issues firsthand, right? So what I mean by that is, we've had these customer signals saying, hey, I want this part mix, customer B saying, I want this part mix. And then as they were coming to distributors, they were kind of watering it down depending on their inventory levels, right? What they want to promote. And so when it came to TI, our planning engines, right? We have a lot of fabs. As I mentioned, we have about 14 different fabs in 9 different countries. They all have to be loaded in a way that we meet our customer demands. But what was happening is, in a very, very hot market, we were building to these judged and inaccurate signals, right? Than actually building it to the customer signals. So in turn, what happened? We've ended up with a wrong inventory mix, right? And obviously, to have that wrong inventory mix, our inventory costs increased. And most importantly, what we were building was not what the customers wanted. They wanted some other mix. So in turn means the customer is not able to finish their product, and which affects our revenue and profitability, right? So you see how these are all interrelated, right? So this was a very big lessons learned for us. And then, when we re-looked into it, we spent a lot of time. Our sales teams were involved in again, 2018, 2019, the market slowed down, which gave us an opportunity to reflect on what's happening here, right? And how can we go prevent it? And the conclusion we came to is, what if we had a clean direct signal, right, into our factories? Which again, all the downsides I mentioned, if we had a great signal, we can load our factories accordingly, right? Which in turn leads to lower inventory costs, in turn leads to creating something that the customer wants, right? Which increases revenue, which increases profitability. Right? What if a supplier had an omni-channel experience, right? Now, what we are seeing, how many of you, before you do that, you just go online and look and say, hey, what is my price? What features I have, right? What is availability, etc. So more and more people are going to websites, right? Yeah. So now we have improved our website presence. It's called ti.com, right? The TI store. People can go check out, data sheets, etc. So we had to rethink and actually put investment in revamping our website. What if supplier had, we had closer insights? Again, as a part of our website improvement, we had to go in and see if we can get data insights from the customers, right? So which is big data, where now we know how many engineers have gone in and clicked on something, what are they working on, right? Again, all legally we can customer insights, and so just again, a lot of trends are there, but I want to kind of give you guys one of the example that McKinsey has published in their white paper. where how one of the method using these latest supply chain helped increase the flexibility of their supply chain and also become profitable, right? So this is called like a segment, stock, and plan. And I might say, right, we are kind of using something similar here, right? Where this talks about if you improve your part segmentation and segment accordingly, and you understand your product portfolio, you can use those to properly plan what to build, right? And properly plan your logistics. Enhanced stock algorithm. Again, some of the trends that I talked about, right? Instead of humans using these expensive ERP systems and having a lot of manual overrides, can you use predictive analytics? One of the things we talked about, big data analytics that you can use to predict what is the customer going to buy, what are some of the buying patterns, right? And load your factories accordingly, so that you will see, you will ultimately reduce shortages for our customers, manage your inventory levels better, right? Hence the costs. And then the other one, like we talked about segment, we talked about stocking, and now planning, right? How can you have more dynamic processes so that you can develop an enhanced build plan, right? So by creating flexible kits or specialized products, etc., right? So that decisions are more automated, right? So how can you say, okay, what do you plan accordingly, and what are the needs? So net, right? The latest supply chain, some of the latest supply chain trends can be used to improve your bottom line and profitability. So this is just out of a white paper, and I can say we are kind of using real time, similar to what I'm sharing here at TI. So in summary, these trends will have how we do business, how we operate, right, in supply chain. So these trends, these technological advances are going to drive these next generation supply chain. Not just what I shared, right? There are many more that are going to drive how your supply chain is going to be, right? Who knows what technology is going to come, disruptive technology is going to come tomorrow that's going to help us rethink our supply chain. So case in point being, companies and organizations, they have to evolve continuously, right? If you are stuck in the past, right, you will just like my my phone call story, where I probably still be spending $30 a month trying to talk to my parents once a month, right? So if you don't evolve, you're kind of stuck and not helping your profitability. So to gain your competitive advantage, the leaders, supply chain leaders, they have to factor in latest trends, right? The implications to their business, and more importantly, act, right? And I just shared a real-time example that we, a semiconductor company, who are not, who traditionally have not focused on the supply chain, are just now evolving and looking at these trends and actually making a move to go, meet our customer needs. Okay, so with that, let me kind of open up to Q&A. That's all the presentation I have. So let me open up for questions.
Dear participants, it's time for you to ask question. If you have any queries, you can post it in the comment box in YouTube too, so that she can answer your questions. If you
Madam?
want to unmute yourself and ask, you can ask.
Madam, one question,
sir,
madam.
You can ask the question, sir.
Hello?
Yes?
Yes, sir, you can
One
ask,
question,
sir.
madam. Hello?
Yes,
Yes, sir,
please.
you can proceed, sir.
Madam, this is Dr. Tabasukandan from this side, madam. My question is, tools available for the prediction of potentials for students for academic institutes like some SF colleges in Tamil Nadu?
Sir, I probably don't know in terms of any software or tools that are readily available. Maybe you are familiar, some of you in the audience may be familiar with it. But what I can say is, if this is an interesting topic and a lot of research is going on. If you just kind of look at different companies, people do offer trial analytics. Tableau is one of them, right? So you can kind of get trial licenses and actually play around with it. And a lot of companies actually give you some white papers on the usage, right? So I highly recommend students, if you are interested in something and you hear about something, please go to their website and start looking at looking at white papers and if you go to contact us or whatever, right? They're willing to give you trial licenses if you want to play around with some software. That helps.
Okay, madam. Then what are the steps to retain the existing students for any institution for service marketing, madam? Is there any peculiar strategies?
Go ahead.
Is there any peculiar strategies which are available for the purpose of retaining the existing students in any academic institution, and also to how to acquire the new students for any institutions?
Okay, so you're kind of usage of retaining students and acquiring new. Okay, so from marketing strategies and stuff, right? So again, I'm not the expert in all of that, but more I would say is, from my professional experience, the more you listen to your customers, right? Surveys, customer surveys, those kind of things. Take a look at that. Be open to reviews that happen, right? Get the perspective and see what's working, what's not, right? And see, at the end of the day, not just in academia, in any industry, if you have the customer first kind of a mentality, right? Which is in academia case, student first, right? Can we meet their needs irrespective of costs or whatever that may be? You can't make everybody happy, but if you can kind of look at it from that perspective and see what is the best experience you can get, right? You don't have to promote, sir. People will start coming to you.
Okay, madam, one last question, madam. In supply chain management, is there any restriction for the number of channels in the chain?
I don't think so, sir. Every company has to evaluate what their ways of reaching customers, right? If you look at typical 4 P's of marketing, right? You have to have the right product, right price, right place, and right promotion, right? So depending on the customer behaviors and the industry you are in, you should be able to go and say what works best, right? The example I just gave in the industry, in the past, we didn't worry about dealing with the customers directly. We've always relied on that single distributor kind of strategy, right? Even though there were multiple distributors, but the channel was distribution channel. Over the years, we've learned our lessons and we've gotten feedback from the customers and the hardships they've seen. And we evaluated. We have got to go omni-channel, right? Put our investments in revamping our website, revamping the way we interact with our customers, our infrastructure, etc. So it all depends on. I don't think there is any. Again, my opinion is you shouldn't. At the end of the day, you have to do the ROI on what is the best use of are you getting the returns if you go omni channel, or you go 10 channels or one channel, right? Depending on that, you evaluate and see what's working, what's not. Again, I go back to think about customer first. Are you meeting their needs in any supply chain you choose, right? At the end of the day, happy customers leads to profitability, or even in your case, academia wise, right? You'll have more students because the word is good.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Very nice. Thank you, madam.
Ma'am, ma'am, there is a question in posted in YouTube comment box, ma'am.
Okay. So what
Ma'am, can you
will
hear
be
me?
the impact?
Okay.
Yeah.
Dear ma'am, what will be
Go ahead.
the impact in supply chain if India boycotts Chinese product in current situation?
Good question. So again, right? You go back to the agile. You have to rethink into all the products as a country we consume, and see, can you supplement it with something else, right? You just can't. I don't think, right, overnight you can make those decisions. It all, same thing with COVID, right? COVID came along, latest supply chain trends, and have on the day-to-day, people and to your economy. And I think those decisions need to be made, evaluating that, right? Not again, we all live in different political situations, right? Even in the, because I see tariffs and all of those things. Geopolitical situations are becoming more and more a factor in evaluating the supply chain, right? For example, US and China are now in a trade war, right? We're going to add tariffs to soybeans, we're going to add tariffs to this and that. That's affecting day-to-day farmers in the US, right? Some political decisions happen without our control, right? But I sure hope leaders are looking at how it impacts the customer. Again, customer centric, right? If you understand your customer, I'm sure November elections will see different because people who got affected with differently, these trade wars, are gonna vote differently, right? So everything has implications. We need to understand that and take decisions.
Ma'am, next question by our HOD, Dr. M.L. Jnanadasan.
Yeah.
Why no manufacturing footprints in India? We now have good schemes like Make in India.
Sir, I would say never. Who knows? we might go. Traditionally, TI has always evaluated several manufacturing locations. We've been very fortunate with, I think TI came to India back in 80s. We had, one of the first multinationals to come. And as we learned the resources we've had in India, like the talent, right? I mean, nobody can beat India in terms of technological talent. So we have a lot of R&D presence right now. With every fab, we evaluate a lot of different factors, right? And then, several decisions are made. Just now are starting back to Make in India. We have Make in America, right? Our current president gives a lot of tax benefits and all of those, which led to our next lab starting in US again. So hope that answers.
Okay, ma'am. Thanks.
Ma'am, next question. How does it comes to know about customer requirements?
How does PI come to know about customer requirements? Yeah. So multiple ways. One is our big customers. We have dedicated sales and applications team that we work with, right? For example, Samsung or LG or Apple, right? These are big customers that have dedicated sales teams and application teams that are working with them to solve their problems every day. The other back to the one of the topics I covered is omni-channel, right? We have improved our web presence. Now, customers who are going into ti.com, like, say, hey, I want to look at an op amp. I'm designing, maybe a thermostat, right? So we kind of, again, big data, right? If you're tracking something, you're leaving tracks behind. So we are able to go look at those kind of things, and we have web presence, right? End-to-end customer support, etc. That online chat and all of those things that we engage with these mass market customers. Again, our customer base is very, very big, 100,000 customers, and we use different techniques to go learn about those requirements. That includes including web.
Ma'am, next question.
Uh-huh.
For the freshers who have completed their academics in 2020, what would you recommend to do in this quarantine, ma'am? I'm asking about the type of course which is necessary.
So again, I would say depends on your interest, right? But there is the beauty of technology is a lot of things are available at your fingertips, right? So think about 2 steps down the road what you want and what area is more marketable, and start researching online. I mean, there are things like Coursera. I think maybe there are equivalent in India where you can actually pay for very little money and get lectures from prestigious universities like MIT, right? And a lot of them are free too, right? So take advantage of those and see what are some marketable skills that are out there, and start learning. I don't know about internships, right? The other way to get experience would be to get involved with like nonprofits where you have the opportunity, right? You don't get paid, but some problems to solve, right?
Okay, ma'am. Next question is from Dr. Tripura Sundari. Now, during this pandemic, how the inventory being managed and customers being satisfied?
Very good question. So a lot of shortages, right? Because we've had where our factories had to stop because of local government requirements. We have fabs in Philippines, so wherein our fab cannot operate, right? So I think it's affecting almost every supply chain that is out there, and we are no different. And what I can say is people are being very creative in how to go solve those customer problems, right? One example I would say is when factory said, hey, you can't go move people from one region to the other. This zone is quarantined. What we did was we took hotels, local hotels, and staffed our team members because they could move within the region, but they cannot go in and out of the regions, right? So that we can make sure they have facilities and still can operate some fabs, very essential fabs. So again, people are being creative, and I'm sure a lot of supply chains are being affected, and we're doing our best to make sure that we look to big data and see what are some of the essential things, what are long lead time parts that we have to start our fabs now, right? Add some of these extra extended lead times and plan our engines accordingly. So again, there is no right or wrong answer. It's difficult for every supply chain, but these are some of the things we are doing at TI.
Thank you, ma'am. Next question, ma'am. What course would you recommend to the students who currently completed their MBA in supply chain?
I'm a big fan of, again, I am not the expert in all of this, but what I have seen is learn something that helps you analyze the data analytics, right? Because in the business, data is powerful, but just having data is not enough. How would you visualize the data, analyze the data in a way it's presented so that the data is screaming at you to take action, right? So some of the things that has helped me is get comfortable with data, right? Data analytics course, and I think I've seen business analytics as something that is trending as well. So get comfortable with data. Anything related to data visualization, that would be helpful for you guys.
Ma'am, next question, ma'am. In supply chain management, how do you compare with competitors?
Semiconductor industry is we have some big players, and because we have a broad portfolio and broad customer base, I would say TI is probably one of the trend setters in our supply chain management, right? Just like the things I talked about, we are probably one of the first ones where we have our website revamped, right? 4 or 5 years ago, we started that effort. Buy supply, you can buy parts up to 10,000 at ti.com. So I think, I'm proud to say we may not be the best in every aspect of supply chain, but we are certainly the trend leaders in supply chain for industry. Okay, so we
question,
have
ma'am.
another couple of questions. Maybe cut up?
Yeah, we have 2 questions, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. How to end up a job in this field, particularly for freshers?
Again, guys, this is I would say, right, if you live in this, any operational company with big operations would need somebody with a supply chain background. Especially when I hire people, I look for supply chain supply chain management background folks to join sales operations. So any company that has operations, I definitely would appreciate supply chain background professionals. So take a look at those. And I don't know how internship situation is in India. Internships are a great way to get in the company, right? It's kind of like a lot of companies today going the route of hiring interns, like a test drive, right? Before you buy the car, you do a test drive. Similar to that, a lot of companies, especially freshers, right? People look for internships. You don't. That's a good first step to enter the door, and that might give you some work experience. And you as a person has a ability to look at the company culture ways, right? Don't just pick up something that is that you're not happy with, right? Always look for something that you're passionate about, and a company that you want to work for, especially if you want to do a career, right?
Ma'am, next question, actually it's posted in YouTube comment box. What will happen to the China because of US-China trade war, COVID-19, and India and China standoff? Negative opinion about China by other countries. Actually, this question was asked by the person who asked about the boycotting Chinese product, right? Same person asked this question.
Yeah, again, guys, I don't think I have an answer or a crystal ball on what the geopolitical situation is gonna entail. But as with anything, right, we have to be on the geopolitical situation that is happening between countries, not just US, China, or India, China. Right?
Ma'am, your voice is breaking, ma'am.
Okay, is this any better? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Hello, can you hear me, ma'am?
me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, just to wrap that up, right? Again,
Okay, ma'am.
geopolitical situation you need to factor in, right? And just now, last night, Trump signed an order. We can't have. We are stopping H-1 visas, right? So that's going to affect. That's going to affect the the technological industry here. So again, back to, are your supply chains agile, right? Are you do you have the infrastructure to react swiftly for any of these changes, right? Nobody will have a perfect plan because these are all things that are unforeseen, right? We never imagined 2020 is going to have a pandemic year, right? We've never seen anything like this, at least in my, in my lifetime, right? So the point being, while we cannot predict everything, right? How you react, how you've invested your infrastructure to have the ability to go react is going to define the success of the companies. Okay, one more question,
I hope
maybe.
we can end this session.
Okay.
From our HOD, in US, do you have human resource? Now you also culturing H1B visa.
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Ma'am, I'll ask now. For Make in USA, do you have the human resources? Now we also have stopped H1B visas.
Sir, I'm not a political, person that can predict. But the idea here is, right, similar to Make in India, right? Make in USA, we are going to bring those jobs back, especially manufacturing, right? For example, something that, our president is going after, where he's saying pharma has left to China and India. We need to bring those back so that, the average American can start getting those jobs back, right? Again,
maybe pharma or electronics. It is all labor intensive industries, right? You need more people to work in. So how you can manage? US is thinly populated.
Proof is in the pudding. Proof is in the pudding, sir. These political waves come and go. But I'm sure, as we start this Make in America, right, we'll learn some lessons, and some we may get to where your resources are not just there, just like how you mentioned, right? And that will be a harsh reality that you get to then the globalization, right, comes back. Again, these come in waves. Sometimes you swing this way, sometimes you swing that way, right? Somewhere in the middle.
Okay, thank you.
Ma'am, there is a question, last question from our student side, ma'am. They're asking for a suggestion in which they're asking about the core area in supply chain management.
You've seen the different trends, right? There is an intersection of a lot of disruptive technologies out there. Again, I go back to the future is in data, right? So anything related to data analytics, right? Big data, AI related, AI and machine learning. Those are the things that any related to data, if you start getting comfortable with and learning, I think that's probably where I would put my money in.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for your answers and all. Gratitude is the healthiest of all human emotions. The more you express gratitude, yes, ma'am. Gratitude is the healthiest of all human emotions. The more you express gratitude for what you have, the more likely you will have even more to express gratitude for. I kindly request Ms. Linnea, Assistant Professor, Department of Management Studies, to extend the word of gratitude. Over to Ms. Linnea.
Good evening. It's my privilege to propose the vote of thanks to all those who have witnessed and contributed to the happening of the webinar a successful one. I thank Almighty God for making today's event a resounding success. On behalf of the Department of Management Studies, DMI College of Engineering, I extend a very hearty gratitude to the resource person of the webinar, Ms. Aparna, for wonderful presentation and making the. I'm confident that all the participants would have certainly be benefited from her resourceful content. Thank you so much, ma'am. I wish to express my gratitude to our administrator and principal for their continuous support, and my sincere gratitude to our HOD Dr. Jnanadasan for being the catalyst to do our best. I also thank our department faculties for their extreme support. I appreciate the overwhelming participation and wholeheartedly thank all the participants for the active participation in this webinar. Thank you. Thank you, and all.
Everyone, stay safe.
Thanks, madam. Thanks, ma'am. You also stay safe, ma'am. We'll pray for you, definitely. Thanks a lot for your time, ma'am.
Okay, no problem. Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah,
Good luck.